I was in the Korean and Vietnam War. In the Korean War, I was not on the ground in Korea. I was flying out of Guam over North Korea at 40 plus thousand feet on a mission called Show Our Strength, with the Bombay doors open and the two bombs in the two Bombays, a hydrogen and atomic bomb, weighing quite a bit. Uh, we would fly over, crisscross North Korea, uh, and give the fighters a chance to come up and take a look, but they could not get as at that time they couldn't get as high as we were flying, so they could take pictures. And the mission Show My Strength has been used many times, and that's during the Cold War. So I think that probably with the B-36, that was probably one of the deterrents in in the Cold War. I might mention that I'm a flight engineer. During the Korean War, I was a crew member of B-36s, which carried three engineers, big airplane. In Vietnam, I was stationed in Japan. I flew almost entirely in the Vietnam area. I got 8 days a month at home, 2 days at a time. The rest of the time I was in the Vietnam area, flying 124s for cargo and passengers. Uh, we probably was one of the biggest supporters of the war going into Saigon, of passenger of people and war materials. We hauled everything from bombs to um, arresting gears for the Navy. You're familiar with what arresting gear is. That's uh, a big unit, weighs 44,000 pounds, and it makes a runway like a carrier. It stops the airplanes. And we hauled those in there, 44,000 pounds a unit in our airplane. Uh, well, we were not in combat. We were non-combat flying. However, taking off from most of the bases in Vietnam, we flew out over the jungle and we received a lot of small caliber fire. Okay, we had some holes in the airplanes occasionally, but it was a small fire and it wasn't any danger to us. Uh, One time we had a punctured fuel tank, and that caused no problem because the attitude of the airplane. The fuel was not in that particular part of the tank because the tank was empty. When we landed in Philippines and the airplane changed its attitude, then the fuel started running out of that hole. That was once, and then once we got hit in the fuselage of the airplane, and it hit a voltage regulator and caused a small fire. And I was fortunate enough to get to it and remove the voltage regulator and stop the fire. Uh, that's the only two instances I can remember happening that would could have turned into some danger. I worked with 88 flight engineers with the 22nd Troop Carrier Squadron out of Tachikawa, Japan. And it was probably well known throughout the Air Force with the people that were stationed there. It was the best assignment I ever had. The squadron, the people there, we never had any problem whatsoever with scheduling, with nothing. We just did our job, what we was told to do, and everybody was happy. The B-36, we dropped a lot of bombs on bombing ranges. We had firing ranges. We fired our guns. We had several 20 millimeter turrets. on the B-36, and we fired our guns in the gunnery range. We dropped our bombs in the bombing range. Not the B-36 was in service from 1948 to 1958 and never fired a shot in anger. Well, we'll start with the B-36. That was SAC, and SAC is different from the rest of the Air Force. The B-36 was had a lot of problems. I mean, it was common. Well, our plans were when our airplane flew a mission, and our missions were scheduled 14 hours, 20 hours, or 30 hours. The test hop alone was 4 hours. And the airplanes would come back from a mission with a lot of minor problems. My job, before I became an engineer, I was a crew chief, and our job then was the airplane had to be back in flying condition before we went home. So I've worked 24 hours many times, but in I remember a year, I went to school to be an engineer, and I came back and became the third engineer on my flight crew that flew my airplane. Flight crews were assigned to an airplane and a ground crew. Everybody was together all the time. 5 years. Well, we had the hydrogen bomb, which was 17,000 pounds. And we had the atomic bomb. I don't know what you call it other than that. Weighed 38,000 pounds. And we carried one. Each one would fill up the bomb bay. Never used. The only time one was dropped was an accident out in New Mexico or someplace like that. A 17,000 pound bomb was dropped out of an airplane inadvertently. And that's all I can say about it because I don't know any more about it. Did it go off? No. They're duds until they're armed. We carried the armament with us, but it's in a separate compartment. I'll tell you the airplanes that I flew was the B-36 was one. And I say I flew, I was not a pilot, as you know. I went from there to KC-97s, tankers, refueling B-47s and B-52s. I went from there to the 124s, which I went to Vietnam with, or Japan. Okay, after that, I went to Wright-Patterson to the test center, and I flew a B-50, a Connie, which is a 121 in the Air Force. I flew the 124. Then I went to the 141 jet, and then I went to the C-5. And I flew the C-5 for about 6 months. Then I was transferred to Birmingham, Alabama, to Hayes Aircraft flying for the civilians. We were there, there's 20 people there, and we did test hops for the Air Force to come in and pick up the airplanes after they were finished. Well, I went right back to KC-97 because we were hanging 2 jets on the 97, and the Air Force would send the airplane in, we would run it through an Iran and hang 2 jets on it, and we would test hop it, and then they would come pick it up.
So you started off this reunion with what?
With 88 people, men. Okay. And
What year was that?
35 years we had reunions.
Wow.
And the last time we had a reunion was about 8 years ago, and we didn't have enough people left to have a reunion because you can't get specials in hotels and restaurants and all that with, half a dozen people. And the last time I checked, there's 5 of us now.
And these are from the original 88, what were those 88 representing?
They were all engineers. Now, I retired from the Air Force in 1972 with 22 years, and I've had success, fortunately, in several businesses. My latest was real estate company owner, broker. I quit work in 1994.
How old are you now?
I'm 92.
Thank you for watching. If you like my videos, please subscribe.